have a lot to share and all of those things. So if you are coming in new, welcome, welcome. If you see me looking this way, it's because I am keeping track of chat, because I'm not sure whether there is a lag or not. I feel like there's a little bit of a lag. Monique, hello, Monique. Thank you for being here. And Eric Boyd is here. Hello, Chelsea's PhD candidate at UCF. Welcome, 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 Chelsea. Okay, so with me, you have Dr. Keondria McClish. The way I know Dr. Keondria McClish is because she came to me many years ago from another college when I was working at the Kansas State University. And then she sort of talked to me, attended some workshop I was doing, and decided to completely switch over and start working with me.
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that.
Okay. Well, okay. All right. So we won't talk about that right now. She has some plans to talk about that at some point. But anyway, she's my former doctoral advisee. I'm very proud of her. I'm very proud of the work that she has done. And we have been doing a lot of things together. And we have also co-written a piece together that she will obviously talk about it, because I can't talk about it because she is the first author. So I'm just here to just support. That's all I'm doing. So I wanted to talk to Keondria today because I wanted to highlight a part where Keondria was stuck during data collection, data analysis, and scholarly writing. And I really wanted to go deep into that and go very granular into that to kind of talk about, like, what was that like? How was she navigating that? And what does that look like on this side now? And what sorts of things come up? And I wanted to talk about that. And so as you guys are listening, please chime in, please write down your stuff too when you're hearing, like if it's resonating with you or if it's the same place we are stuck, that would be very helpful. Hey, Jackie, nice to see you. Nice to see you. So, Keondria, take it away.
Thank you for the invitation, and I'm so glad to see you all here. Like Dr. Bhattacharya said, we have a setup here going on. So if I'm looking this way and looking this way, I'm trying to see you on my tablet here, but I'm also trying to keep eye contact over here. So we have this wonky setup to make sure this could happen today. So thank you all for joining us so much. I'm so glad to be here. Gosh, I think, as Dr. Bhattacharya was saying, we kind of have to start at the beginning to tell a little bit about our background and give some context to where we are now. So like she said, I started the PhD program in another department, found myself struggling in that department, not with the work, but with feelings of isolation, feelings of belongingness, the expectations of the program, right? The expectations weren't high or rigorous. They were just different than what I expected coming in, than what we talked about when I signed to come on. And then not feeling like I was learning what I was supposed to learn, right? So I was teaching a diversity course as a TA without much support, and that's a whole nother conversation. But all of these things culminated to me feeling like, this is not a good space for me. So 2 years in, I was going through the motions and able to really articulate what I needed as a grad student and how all of this was affecting me, right? Because it seemed like the norm. It seemed like this is what you're supposed to be doing as a grad student. You're supposed to be kind of struggling with this thing and trying to figure it out by yourself. So that really was affecting me. And I just put my head down and tried to figure it out, right, without the support, without having the support. So during my visit with my advisor, we began talking about the dissertation. And I had already knew that I was going to do a qualitative dissertation. So she suggested that I meet with Dr. Bhattacharya. And my advisor hadn't met Dr. Bhattacharya. She just heard good things about it, right? So she said, I think you should go over talk to this lady. Kakali Bhattacharya in College of Education. I haven't really met her, heard great things about her. Maybe she can help us, and maybe you can talk to her about being on your committee. So I initially went over, I think I went to a talk of yours. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I went to a talk of yours, and then sent you an email and asked if we could meet to talk about you being on my committee. And it was in that first meeting when I came to your office and you asked me, how are you doing? That was the first question you asked. Do you remember this?
No, I don't remember that. So this is
man.
Your memories now. Remembering, yes.
Remembering, absolutely. So you asked how I was doing. And it was just the general, how are you doing? And I gave you the standard, I'm fine. And you looked at me and said, no, really, how are you doing? Do you remember now? And I broke down crying in your office. We had just met. I was a mess. I was a mess. Oh my God. So she didn't agree to be on my committee right away, right? So it was like, we need to work through some other things. So she didn't agree to be on my committee right away. But she connected me with the graduate student group. She said, you need community. You need connection. This is some of the things that are going on with you. This is what's happening. So we had that initial conversation when I was just going in prepared to talk to her about my research and ask her to be on my committee, just this 10-minute conversation. And then it turned out to be this whole other entire conversation that I was not prepared for, just from the question of how are you really doing, right? So it was different than what I had just totally encountered and expected, because I was feeling so broken. I was feeling like such of a mess inside. And I was just so unsure of myself because of the department that I was coming from and all of the toxicity in that department and all of that. So then, having the confidence in all of that was just that imposter monster, as Enzel Dua and you call it, and all of that. That became my best friend. That imposter became my best friend, and she greeted me daily, right? So when you had asked me that, it was like I was being seen. I just totally broke down and was a mess in your office. So then I began taking the qualitative courses with you. I don't know if I had moved over to your department yet, but I began taking qualitative courses, and it was in that intro to qual course where we did the bag project. And I found myself crying in that class too. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Found myself crying in that class too. And it was like, what the heck is going on with me? Right? So I was bursting at the seams with emotion. On the outside, I had it pulled together, but on the inside, I was a mess. And a culmination of things, being a student of color in a predominantly white space, being a broke grad student, not having a sense of community, not necessarily having that connectedness. Sure, we have a cohort that we go through this thing with, but after being burned in academia by students and professors, you learn, not to trust anyone and to kind of stick to yourself. So that's where I really was. So I ended up actually switching programs and moving over to the College of Education to study under Dr. Bhattacharya, and then she became my co-chair for my dissertation. So all of this leads to the question that she's asking of what were my stuck points during my dissertation and data analysis. I had so much crap that I hadn't worked through, so much in my head space and also in my heart space, that when I went to the College of Education, I brought all of this with me in addition to the thing that I was studying. So my work focuses on the psychosocial development of older Black women. And in my dissertation, I specifically wanted to understand how Black women negotiated their understandings of sexuality through informal learning environments. I was unclear on the direction that I was going, cloudy in my judgment and in my understanding, especially with qualitative research. So initially I was drawing on all of these white-centered discourses to inform my study. And I mean, that's the way that I knew, right? That's what we were introduced to. So that's the traditional approach that I took. especially in qualitative. So when I went to Dr. Bhattacharya and told her, this is the study that I'm thinking of, this is the way I'm thinking of doing it, we had multiple conversations about what this would look like. And from my perspective, you may remember this as well, from my perspective, I wanted to play it safe, right? I wanted to play it safe. You wanted to push the boundaries a bit. And with me coming from such a place of mistrust, I was pretty apprehensive, so then, yeah, I wanted to play it safe, so apprehensive in my engagement with her as well. So she told me, just start reading literature from women of color. Start reading those stories, start reading Black women, everything you can, novels, novellas, short stories, everything you can, women of color, Black women, and then jot down the things that are resonating with you, right? So the tropes, how they are navigating these spaces, what they're saying, what they're not saying, feelings, isolation, loneliness, love, everything, write it down. So I started doing that, and it sounded easy, right? But it was not as easy as I had thought at all, because I had read a lot of these things already, but not from the perspective of looking at it to inform my dissertation and to inform my onto-epistemologies, right? So it was culturally, I had read these things, but not looking at it from this framing or from this lens. So it definitely wasn't an easy task or easy feat that she had tasked me with. But eventually, we read these and we constructed these constructs to inform Black women-centric narrative inquiry, and we called it Black narrative inquiry. So in my dissertation, it was called Black feminine narrative inquiry at first, but after discussions, we used Cynthia Dillard's "And Darkened" to disrupt the oppressive language and transform the language used to understand the mental, spiritual, and intellectual epistemologies of marginalized people through various culturally constructed contexts, right? So while we mainly used text to inform and darken narrative inquiry, it's also encompassing of music, it's also encompassing of art, visual narrative, so many other art forms that inform, right, Black women-centric narratives. So we then called it Darkened Narrative Inquiry. So throughout this process, I was journaling. I was writing things down, writing everything down, right? Because the expectation that I had come from in a different department to this expectation now was so much more rigorous, was so much more, I had to really understand what it is that I was understanding, reading, knowing, talking about. I had to really understand that. So throughout this process, I began journaling. And not necessarily knowing that it was journaling, I was just writing everything down. Everything I heard, everything I read, the things in class, patterns, themes, understandings, new thoughts, developments, how I was evolving, everything. I began to write those down. And then with the guidance of Dr. Bhattacharya, these narratives and themes began to evolve and included the elements of pain, the elements of love, secrets, humor, family, right? So all of these things that I'd read in these novels and novellas and short stories and all of these things from these women of color, right, that I could use to situate my own study. So that's how that came about with the narrative and darkened narrative inquiry. Am I missing anything?
No. I mean, that is a very comprehensive sort of take on all of that. from my perspective, I'll tell folks like what I was seeing. That way they have a parallel perspective, because it's so interesting, like what you saw going through and then what I saw you go through. So there's like so much layers to this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I saw her go through is, in the beginning, because she wanted to stay on the safe side, she was um, going through a lot of sort of traditional pathways, because that's safe. Folks have already done it. Except, when you fragment yourself like that and you say like, no, I can't be Black in a hostile, predominantly white space, because that's very dangerous for me, then your work and the way you show up for your work is not very convincing, and it's not very compelling, and the quality of that work is not always going to be as strong as it could be to your potential if you did the work from a place of wholeness, because then you have more convictions, then you are more anchored, then you know why you're doing what you're doing. So she sort of started going in with a more traditional path, and boy, was she struggling. She was struggling, and she was like getting really scared of feedback that I was giving. So it was like not a pleasant experience, because she was doubting herself every time there was a lot of feedback coming up. She was doubting herself. She was thinking like, okay, maybe I'm on the wrong path altogether. And so then one day we just sat down and I said, what is it that you really want to do? And at that point we had, she had said, well, I could do some interviews, I could do some focus groups. And that's when we started talking about it. And I said, well, if this wasn't an academic study, if you didn't have an academic gun pointed at you, how would you want to approach this older women from your community? Would you really put them around a university conference room and try to do a focus group across a table? Would that be a way you would engage them if this wasn't a study? She's like, no, I wouldn't engage them like that. I said, okay, well then let's forget everything that you think you're supposed to do. Let's start from scratch, and let's start with first figuring out what is a good framework for you that speaks to you. And that's when I sent her to do a lot of novel readings, and Black women storytelling was what I asked. Go find out how Black women tell their story. How do they narrate their lives? How do they author their own identities? Go there, because that's cultural wisdom, that's cultural wealth. So go there. So that's when I sent her there. And then I said, journal and journal. And so this is how this comes about, the next part of it, like how to really deepen the knowledge and the scholarship. And so Keondria was like, journal, what does that mean? Journal, what do I journal? Go ahead, Keondria, take it away.
Yes. So exactly right. So it was like, what do I journal, right? So that's when I just began to write down everything, because I had no idea where to start or what even to write, right? So I just wrote down everything. And the things that really resonated with me were the conversations that we had in class, right? So it was those side conversations that we were having in class, that I was having with the other students as well. And then the things that I was reading, and I was just seeing these from a different perspective, because I was reading all of these things. And then in the midst of it all, right? So I journaled everything, journaled my feelings. I journaled the things I was reading. I journaled the things that were resonating with me. I journaled the things that weren't resonating with me, like this isn't working, right? So when you asked me if I was doing a Bildungsroman, right? And I was like, no, that doesn't even make sense. I don't even know what that is, right? And you're like, no, I think you need to think about that. So then I wrote down Bildungsroman and started reading all the things that I could about Bildungsroman. And then found this really amazing article that informed, Black women and using the coming of age stories and all of that, right? So it was the things that I didn't know, right? So when you don't know what you don't know, you just kind of oblivious to it. So I wrote down all of those things, all of the things that I needed to read more about, the terminology that we were talking about, my feelings, how I was navigating this whole thing. I wrote down every single thing that I could, because I knew I would forget it in that moment, right? So in that moment, it was as if we were having these conversations, but when I went to sit to write it, it just left me. right? So I had to write it down because I would forget everything that just happened. All the feelings of this, oh, yes, 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 I can write this, and this is what it's supposed to sound like. And then when I sat down to write it, nothing happened. And I was like, but what, I just had all of these thoughts in my head. How can I do that? You know, and so I wrote down everything. Every single thing I started to write down. Every single thing. Even if it didn't make sense at that time, you go back and reflect on it, and you may get a nugget of wisdom from it later on. But every single thing I wrote it down.
We have a question. So Debbie Lee says, how can I incorporate what I journal into my final dissertation? Will this be useful in the findings or discussion, or is it more useful as theorizing as I go along? Do you want to answer that? And then I will chime in as well.
Both and.
Yep.
Yes. Absolutely. So, and then Deborah Williams says reflexivity section. Absolutely. So as you are journaling, you're reading so many things. You have these things in your head, right, on this side that you're thinking about. Then you're housing emotions on this side. Then you're housing, you know, my dissertation and what that looks on this side. Then you're housing a conversation that I had, and I'm trying to remember the thing on this side. And then you have the to-do list, and then the grocery list, and then if you have children, you're worried about their schedules, and then, right, so all of these things that you are trying to work out, compartmentalize in your head, they need to be on paper. That is the only way that you will really get a good, deep understanding of what it is you're reading, what it is that you are encountering when you really write it down, and begin to write around it. Right, so what you're thinking and what you're doing and how it's making sense for you, or how it's not making sense for you. Yeah, so capture everything. Dr. Bachar, you were going to say something.
No, I was just going to add to what you said is, yes, I agree with Keondria that definitely both, Deborah, the question that you asked, definitely both. What you probably will find is as you journal, and depends on how deeply you journal and what you're journaling, as you journal, the things, the insights that come up for you can be embedded all throughout your dissertation. Perhaps journaling gives you a deeper understanding of theory. Perhaps it helps you sort out the head notes you have during, you know, data collection, data analysis, and trying to figure out how to write this up. Perhaps journaling allows you to understand, like, what is the implication for your field, and how am I going to raise certain questions in the field, or what's next for your future studies. So it's not like it can only stay here and you can bracket that under reflexivity and say, I have just journaled this and here's my journal and therefore I got this. It'll probably be something that can inform any and all parts of your study. And so when you are reading things, you know, you want to be in dialogue with the author, whoever's work that you're reading, you want to be in dialogue with the author. So you want to not just say, they said this and therefore this is now correct and this is now an authority. You know, you want to take something that somebody has said and you want to, like, maybe pull out certain things that are resonating with you or have like a high charge for you emotionally. And you want to start, you know, reflecting on why you have a high charge. Is it because it's reinforcing something? Is it because it's in conflict with something? Is it because you think it's absolutely racist and ludicrous? So prior to this point, Keondria had the kind of storytelling structure in narrative inquiry has been kind of from white-centric perspectives. And one of the white-centric perspective storytelling structures, Bildungsroman, a lot of people use, a lot of scholars I love and respect have used it. I have suggested it to some of the students. They found the structure helpful. It's a coming-of-age story. It has a beginning, middle, and end. You know, it has a narrative plot, and you have a conflict, and you sort it out by the end of it. You know, so it has that. It has that storytelling structure, right? But then Keondria goes out and finds this article from a Black literature professor and comes and shows it to me and says, look, this Bildungsroman is white, and this is why it's so white. And so she's teaching me now, because I said, just go and focus on everything Black-centric, and then we will move forward that way. And of course, we don't all know all the things that there is to know. So you have somebody like Keondria who's like, okay, if you really think I should be able to do this, I will rise to the occasion, because now I don't have to do this other thing that I was struggling with. So she goes out, she gets this piece and she brings it to me, and I'm looking at it going, oh, of course, yes. How the hell do you come of age when society is completely hostile to you? What is they don't let you express your rage. They take you and kill you if you express your rage compared to somebody else who's not Black. So coming of age stories, which has like a lot of conflict in white folks as coming of age stories, well, Black folks die if they want to express their rage and conflict. So this Black literature author started, pointing these constructs out, that these are not universal constructs, and she kind of blackened it, and I was like, yes, this is so good. This is so good. Go ahead, Keondria.
Yeah, absolutely. So then we really started writing from that perspective, right? Because I kind of had permission to then do something different, right? I saw it here, like I kind of had permission. So we took this, and understanding that Black women's coming of age stories also don't happen the same as others may happen, because there are other things that they may have to take care of. They may be at 9 dealing with younger siblings, right? Cooking dinner, meals, taking care of children, all sorts of things that may happen in a Black woman's coming of age, right? So those things didn't happen in these traditional coming of age stories. So this is also what came about in that article, which was really exciting to see.
So now what I will say from my perspective, what I see folks having trouble when we oh, good, Debbie, thank you. She says it sparked some thinking about there. Jackie, you were asking for the dissertation. It's under embargo at the moment, so because we're trying to publish out of it, so it's under embargo at the moment. There are thieves.
It should be released. It's released.
It's released. She's saying it's
yes.
But it's not. If it's not released, you can go to QSE and you'll find that Keondria and I co-authored the Endarkened narrative piece. So that's actually out there. So you can kind of read through the process of how we got to an Endarkened narrative framework. So that one you will find, International Journal of Qualitative Studies in Education. And so then we started, talking about analysis and data analysis. And here's what I see when folks go into data analysis mode. There's different things that folks struggle with. So sometimes folks struggle, if you're going through the traditional data analysis mode, folks struggle like, how am I going to analyze this data? How am I going to do this? Because they think that it's prescriptive. So you have coding, and then you have all these different types of coding, and then you try to come up with a theme. And I'll tell you right now that there is no simplified process of how you go from code to theme. It's a big black box, and folks have tried to give you as many breadcrumbs as possible, but eventually it's a very abstract process, and it's very difficult to articulate, and it's a different pathway for different people. So folks get so messed up sometimes with that, or they just do the prescriptive way. And so when they do the prescriptive way, thank you, Lynn. When they do the prescriptive way, it ends up being superficial, and you're also reading superficially because maybe you're journaling just how you're thinking or feeling, but maybe you haven't connected to some of the readings. So it ends up being superficial all around. Or I have folks that are much more creative that come, and then they feel stifled by the structure of qualitative inquiry, and they don't know, how do I take all this creative ways that I think and justify it for research? Like, if I want to write a narrative scene, if I want to write a scene and I want to do the scene building, bringing in creative writing skills, how far can I take this before somebody will say, this isn't accurate, this is now completely on creative writing side and not on qualitative research side. So there's all these sorts of places where people get stuck. I'd be really interested to know, where are you stuck in your data analysis and your writing? Like that would be really helpful as we talk to hear your stuck places too. So where are you stuck in your data analysis and writing? Hey, Parma is here. Where are you stuck in your data analysis and writing? So type in chat, like tell us where you're stuck in your data analysis and writing. But mostly what I ended up doing with Keondria, I said, you cannot analyze the data using an established structure. We're going to have to create a framework, your own framework, to be able to do this work. And Rima is here, and I did the same thing with Rima too. Rima's doing a Black Women Autoethnography, and first when she started doing her work, her people started saying, like, you have to go interview everybody so that they can co-sign that what you're telling is correct. And so we navigated through that nonsense. And then, you know, she created her own framework too, you know, very much similar to how Keondria created. She just went through her life history to see like what were certain key anchoring moments, and those were the way she narrated her own life. This is the way she storied her own life. So narrative stuff is how you story your life, the structure of the way you story your life. So when we are doing like more traditional narrative inquiries, so those structures that we know are structures that are from predominantly white authors. So we really needed to move away from that, and we needed to have robust analysis, and we needed to have robust journaling, because Keondria and her experience had to become the site of inquiry. Keondria's experiences data, Keondria's life experiences data, life histories data, relationship with these participants, co-researchers' data, and how she processed it through her body, mind, spirit, cultural knowledge, all of those are sites of inquiry. So we had to make sure that she had free reign to be able to do that work without thinking it doesn't fit that structure, it doesn't fit that structure. So the instruction I was giving her was that we'll get to analysis radar. Let's have a framework first. Let's create a framework first to see if it feels good. It's not an exhaustive framework. It's a framework based on the things she had read at that time. And she can always go back and, you know, modify it and open up a dialogue with other people. But it is definitely, you know, a starting point, especially when nothing really fits in data analysis and folks have a lot of ways that they were frozen. I remember when I was going through my own data analysis process as a dissertation student, I didn't have any clue how to do it. I didn't feel like I could do the traditional thing, but I also didn't know what a culturally situated way of doing data analysis would look like, because I didn't have somebody who could guide me that way, you know? So I was making stuff up as I was going along. I didn't have a blueprint or a map or anything. And I ended up doing a front and backstage ethnodrama and those ethnodramas connected to other front and backstage ethnodrama. And I can tell you, like, I was just so frozen, and I thought that, you know, this is not right. Like, who's done this and how can I defend this? This is not right. So, you know, a lot of deep analysis, deep connection with literature, deep writing, deep journaling, deep thinking. There were times where nobody would talk to me. I was just so dull and boring. Like, I lost friends, you know, family members didn't want to talk to me. I was literally walking to school from my residence building, and I, as a doc student, I remember talking to the sky, the tree, the cars, you know, there was no more humans to listen to me. So I just needed to just continuously sort this out, because it's so much. So in doing all of this, Keondria, when she comes out on this other side, she goes, I want to help students. I want to help graduate students, because I don't think everybody knows how to deepen their scholarship and how to write in a way that they're deeply connected to the work. I don't think people know. I don't think it's right away. When people say journal, I don't think people just know like what that means. Like, what am I journaling about? Is there a structure? Do people tell you? And folks don't really always tell you what that is about. So she started thinking, like, how can I help other graduate students or any academics who want to journal, and what would that look like? Go ahead, Keondria.
So a little bit of a backstory context for that as well. Graduated in 2018, right? So 2018, I just kind of expected to have a job after I graduated, because I had this PhD, right? So somebody's going to hire me. So I expected to have a job right after I graduated, but that was not what happened. And I hit a significant low point. It was to the point where, you know, I was applying to jobs daily, 10, 15, and you know, you start just becoming obsessed with it and start doing things, just grabbing at whatever you can get, applying to things that don't even make sense for you to apply to, but just, you know, applying to things because it's like I need something, especially coming from having a project, having that sense of purpose, having that thing that you're working on, and then the buzz of everyone being around you working on something together. So when I graduated, it was a low point for me. I went on one academic job interview and I didn't get that job. Hell, they didn't even bother sending a rejection letter or even a telephone call, right? So I had to email them and say, you know, did I even get, so I didn't even get that job. But shortly after I got married and I was working as an adjunct, right? So I'm still working as an adjunct, so I'm still working kind of in the area, in the field. So I was at a community college, but no other job prospects. And I found myself spending time in sweats and this old sweatshirt, right? So it was daily that I was in these sweats and sweatshirts. And I couldn't write. I'd sit down to write, I couldn't write. I couldn't think. I'd leave my office, my workspace with just like maybe a paragraph written, but none of it made sense. It was so incoherent. It wasn't even like, what are you really writing about? Because I had nothing to write. I had nothing to write about. So I found myself in these same oversized sweats and sweatshirt, you know, with the holes in the elbow because you've worn this sweatshirt out so long. But it began to feel like the degree was useless. Like I've wasted my time. This is both, Paul, dissertation and COVID. Like I've wasted my time and it's like, what am I doing here with this? So it became a point to where my husband would say, well, maybe you need to go to the library, or do you want to get up and put some clothes on today? Or maybe we should just go for a walk, right? Because I knew what this was, but some of us, especially coming from my background, right? So we don't really say we have depression. It's like you just need to get over it or get out of the funk or whatever it is that you're in, you know. So I was in this depressive state. I wasn't in a good mental state at all. So I backed off of applying for jobs because I couldn't show up. I couldn't show up to an interview broken like this. I couldn't show up. I couldn't even be authentic as I showed up at the interview because I didn't even know who that was right now, right? So none of that. So backed away from that. And I was so fortunate and grateful that I had a partner who supported me. And I never take that for granted because when I needed to spend the time on the couch, right? It was okay, let her spend time on the couch. You know, when I sat on the back porch for hours doing nothing, looking at the trees and the birds because I had nothing else to do, you know, I was allowed that space to do that. So 2 to 3 years later, I'm still an adjunct, no full-time work, still walking around in a fog, but I began this obsessive binge again about applying for jobs. Any job would help, any job I would take. Then the pandemic hit. So I saw all of these people out of work, people getting sick, people dying in the food lines, right? For food and necessities. And like many of you, I was in disbelief, like I can't believe this is happening. And then the things that I was so worried about were no longer a worry because this is not that big of a deal that I don't have a job right now, that I'm still able to pay my bills when so many other people are not even able to do that, right? So the little things that I was worried about became very, very minor in the big picture with COVID happening. So my focus shifted. it was no longer selfish, right? So it was no longer about how do I help myself and how can I advance my career, or how can I do the things that I need to do, but how can I help others right now, especially with the knowledge and the things that I know, right? So I don't know how many of you are spiritual, but I am a spiritual being. So I put it out in the universe. You can call it God, call it whatever you want to call it, but my thing was, show me my talents and my gifts, and show me how I can use them to help people. But more importantly, I wanted to see myself. So I've written on my mirror, allow me to see myself the way you see me. Right? So that was then my thing. How am I supposed to use my gifts and talents to help others? So a few weeks later, while I was in the shower, I had this brilliant idea, right? So you know when you have a good idea when you feel it in your bones. You know when you have a good idea. I had this brilliant idea, and I was like, oh my God, this could work. Don't know how it's gonna work, but this could work. So just thinking about my own academic journey. The academic journey changes you. It changes you. It changes how you see people. It changes how you interact. It changes the conversations you have. It changes your confidence. It changes the way you even see your abilities, right? So everything changes. Your relationships change when you go through this process. Everything changes. You feel confused about your approach to the study, right? The things that I was feeling going through, all of these things. You feeling confused about your approach to the study. You being unsure of whether you're on the right track or not, and then having issues of belongingness or feeling unseen or unheard, feeling like an imposter, needing the space to feel validated and feel all the feelings and emotions. All of those things I began to think about. And it came to me as I was asking, how am I supposed to help people with what I've already experienced and with my knowledge? Right? So feeling the procrastination and calling it writer's block. Feeling the writer's block because I have nothing new or creative to say, all of that. So what happened was I created Sienna and Slate. So I sat down at my computer, and once you have vision, you have vision and you can work fiercely. Mm-hmm. So I sat down, and it was
getting done through you. You can't have the force to resist it. It's like there is a force, spirit, God, universe, whatever you want to call it. It is going to work through you. You're just the doer. The force
absolutely
somewhere much bigger than here. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you can try to sleep it off. You can try to, shoo it away. It's none of that, right? So when I had this vision and I saw it, I can see it, happening. When I had this vision of Sienna and Slate and understanding what this would look like, it was like, oh my God, this is what I wish I would have had as a doctoral student. A dedicated space to think and write. So I created Sienna and Slate. Sienna and Slate, the name comes from, it's a nod to our ancestors, right? Sienna, using burnt clay, using whatever we could to write. And then slate, blank slate, write, chalkboard, black, whatever it is that they could use to write and to chart their thoughts and to pass down history, right? So that's where Sienna and Slate came from. So I created Sienna and Slate, and as a way to support the writer, the thinker, the doer through journaling, because this is what I wish I had as a doctoral student, a space to put all of this stuff, especially the stuff that I was going through in the other department, right? Not knowing what to say, not knowing how to say it, not even knowing what to ask for, right? When I was going through all of these things. So yes, I was afraid and lonely and all of these, but what is it that I need? What do I ask for? I had no idea. So I didn't have this space, right? So I created Sienna and Slate. And I've created 2 journals. And this is initially the 2 journals as the foundation for this. the composition journal, which is,
When you say it, can I do show and tell?
yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so I have the composition journal, and it's the traditional lined space journal where you can put whatever it is you need to put in Sienna and Slate. So the thing about journaling is they don't tell your secrets. You can write whatever it is you need to write in here, and it's not going to tell your secret as if it was you telling someone else, right? So, so we have the composition journal, then we have the introspection journal. And this is a journal with writing prompts. So the introspection journal is the one where it's like, well, what do I write? I don't even know what to say. Staring at the blank page, what am I supposed to write about? What am I supposed to be thinking about? Right? So this is the one that helps me with how am I feeling right now? What is it that I need at this moment?
Can I share with them?
Absolutely.
So some things are just brain dumped. Like she has this list of prompts over here. I'm just so proud of her. You know, I'm this proud academic mentor, mama, whatever you want to call it. So I just want to share this because it's a reality that a lot of people have graduated and their employment is precarious or not there, you know, and a lot of times we think that if we don't have an academic job, we have somehow failed, but that's not the case. You know, that doesn't have to be the case. You have a lot of talents and gifts, and you have learned from academia a lot of things that you can still use towards, you know, helping people and being purposeful and meaningful and all of those things. And to see her to do this journey and move through this dark phases to come out on the other side and say, I'm still authentically me, but I want to help other people who might be in their stuck places as well. And so here she has these prompts, and some of them are emotional. So she has like, at this moment I feel, and some of them are much more cognitive, emotional and cognitive, you know. Why do I care about this research topic? I know it sounds silly, but when you think about why do you care, it's not like you want to give your elevator speech. That's not why you care, because if that is the thing you want to tell me right now, goes, oh, I know why I care. That's not the elevator speech you need to tell yourself, because that's okay, that's performative. But why do you care that this is what you're going to leave behind on earth when you're no longer here? That's a much harder question to answer than, why do I care? I care to just get my papers or my letters. Okay, but then you're not going to get any mileage out of this. This is just a stepping stone. It's just credentialing. But why? Why do you want to do it that way when this can give you a world that will expand for you if you really know, you know, what it is that you want to do and why do you want to do that work. So there, that kind of stuff. Then she talks about data, dialoguing with data. So she says, if my data could talk, I would ask it, you know, or if my data could talk, it would tell me. So there's some really, really deep, rich prompts that are spiritual, cognitive, intellectual, emotional, and you know, I invited her to talk about this because I felt like she wasn't even talking about it to anybody. And I'm like, we need to talk. Folks don't know. Keondria is also an introvert, so I'm kind of and said, come talk to these people, because there will be people who would want to know this and will benefit from this. So she's like, okay, fine, I'll come, you know. But she's been doing this, you know, and just sharing very privately with some folks. And I thought, no, this is helpful information. People need to know your story and why you got to do this work. Go ahead, Keondria.
Yeah. So the two journals, what also makes Sienna and Slate special is the two journals have a message written in the front of them. So these are from, one is from our very own Dr. Paul Maxfield. So he wrote in the composition journal. So he's telling you his journey through the PhD process and giving you a bit of wisdom in that sense. And then the other, the introspection journal, is with Dr. Kimmery Newsom, and she's a very, very dear, very good friend of mine. And she's a marriage and family therapist, and she's giving you a bit of knowledge and wisdom on fortitude, right? So just persistence. Don't stop, keep going. You need to finish this thing. And then that's where the prompts help you get started with writing and writing those deep things that are way below the surface.
Yeah. So what we wanted to do, you know, through this conversation, what we wanted to do was, you know, sort of support folks. If you are at a place, I think somebody was saying, like, how do I situate folks with, how do I train my students to do culturally situated data analysis and writing and all of those things. And I think sometimes our traditional academic background doesn't always train us how to think this way. We have to bump up against our own walls, you know, to be able to do this work, you know. So Keondria and I have partnered up, and I am offering a data analysis retreat, like data analysis and writing retreat on September 24th, 25th, 26th. So it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You can bring your own data, or I can provide you with some data. So we're going to do that. And Keondria is also going to offer a discount, a 10% discount on our journals, and also free shipping. And the promo code is whole being. I'll put all these links up after the live. So if you're interested, you can check it out. But I'll tell you that I am coming up with a lot of people asking me to help with data analysis, and a huge part of doing data analysis is journaling too. So we thought, what can we do? Well, how can we help people? Because folks are feeling stuck. The pandemic is hard, and folks feel very isolated when you do data analysis for your dissertation or for your own research, you know. And so we thought what we could do is we would go and we would do this work, and then we would help people move through some of the stuck places. So the first day of data analysis, we're going to do narrative analysis. So we're not going to start with the traditional one. We're going to start with a little bit of offbeat one, so that you don't get into the rhythm you normally get into doing traditional data analysis. So we're going to start narrative analysis. I'm going to do a workshop for 3 hours on that. And then you're going to have time to apply what you learned to your own data. If you don't bring your own data, that's fine. I have supplies for data that you can use a data set there. So that'll be fine. And then you're going to have time to apply it to your own data set or to the one I provide. And then we're going to have Q&A afterwards. So that's day one. Day two, we're going to do inductive, because some of you are in fields and spaces that don't accept anything other than the more traditional one. But I can help you understand, like, how can you bring a lot of yourself to that, even if it is a very, very traditional way of doing. How do you navigate it if just doing qual is already breaking the barriers that your discipline has? Then how do you still keep your soul alive and presence alive and still do that? And this all, like, really integrates very well with all the journal that Keondria was doing and the work that I'm going to be doing. So that's on day 2, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. EST. And then on day 3, we're going to do writing. We're going to have a writing workshop in the morning, and then you're going to have some time to do your own writing. So you now know the data that you analyzed in the first 2 days. How are you going to write it up? What does that need to look like now? So you're not going to be thrown into, like, this abyss where you're going to do this on your own. So we both wanted, we felt really strongly that a lot of people are struggling. There were folks that were coming up and saying, can you do a data analysis, something, you know? So I thought, I can't do it in one day. I tried it last year and I did it in one day, and it just wasn't good. Like, I had to rush through. So I said, okay. And then I had my immigrant mentality. I barely gave these people any breaks, and they kind of got mad at me, and they said, why didn't you give us breaks? And I'm like, well, if I gave you, they said, like, because it was like a 6-hour workshop. So they said, we needed like a 15-minute break there and a 15-minute break there and an hour break over here. I'm like, but if you paid for 6 hours and you want 2 hours break, then really I'm getting paid for 4 hours. Like, you're really getting 4 hours worth of service, and I'm still getting paid for 2 hours. It's, my immigrant brain went like crazy, and I just couldn't handle it. I'm like, that's not my work ethic, to take money and just go on breaks, you know? So now I've called it a retreat, because now I can build breaks in, and it'll be okay to have breaks. Plus, we're doing it over 3 days. So my brain says, yes, people are allowed to have breaks. I'm allowed to have breaks, but I really want to help. And this is a one-off. It's not like something I would just continue to offer. So if you're interested, just check out the post afterwards. I'm going to have a post. Check out the post, and then also get on my first to know list. I have a post already, because if you miss the post, you can get an email that alerts you to it. We both have a discount that will go away this Tuesday at 11:30 p.m. So Keondria's 10% journals are 10% off plus free shipping. It goes away after Tuesday at 11:30. Mine is almost $100 discount on the workshop that is going to go away. You guys are the first to know. I haven't told anybody yet, but this is our community, and so I wanted to do this for the community. Keondria wanted to do this. In fact, I kind of dragged Keondria into this, saying, "How you're going to have to come out and share this with the folks out there, so that people know that there are certain breadcrumbs that you have laid out that's going to deepen people's scholarship and scholarly writing and data analysis." Yeah, yeah, absolutely, Julia. I'm going to, if you're not on my list of folks, first to know, just get on the list, because I'm going to send out an email this afternoon, this evening, so you'll get that. And that post is like right up there in the group. Just let me know. But that, as I'm looking at the time, what I want to maybe ask you is, share with us, like, maybe what landed for you, maybe what helped you with some of your stuck places, or maybe what resonated, because that would be really helpful for us to know if these are kind of conversations that you find helpful, because our goal is to normalize the fact that people get stuck, people have depression, people feel frozen, people procrastinate, people have self-doubt, and sometimes nothing gets done in that space, and that's okay. But then when you want to get things done, where do you start? How do you start? What is a trigger that activates a gift in you or an inspiration in you? And we needed to have that conversation, because I have been watching Keondria go through this journey, and I'm just so proud, because folks just indoctrinate you that you got a doctoral degree, so you now have to become an academic associated with a university. And she's figuring out that that may not be what is in her path right now, but that does not mean that she doesn't have other rich paths that feel purpose driven for her as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That work does no longer define me. That does not define me.
Yeah. Crystal said immigrant brain loved. Yes, exactly right. September 24th to 26th. Yes, Shawnette. So yeah, so share with us, what are some of the things that resonated with you? What are some of the things that maybe helped you think about some stuck places? This is helpful for us to know, like, how what we said landed. Yes, to purpose-driven path. Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely, Rima. Yeah.
Yeah. Rima says, the importance of inspired work and the connectedness of my spirituality with my dissertation. Rima's doing some really great stuff. Rima and Keondria, if you haven't made friends with each other, you all should make friends with each other. Rima's fantastic. She leaps and bounds. Like, Rima came to my S2S mentoring program, and I got to work really closely with her. She's one of my favorite people in the world. She's so good at what she does, and she's super talented, super talented. My homework at one time for Rima was to send me songs every day, because we were working on her having authentic voice, and she's a beautiful singer. So I'm like, I need to hear your voice. You need to be comfortable with voice. And so she was sending me songs. That was her accountability. Send me songs, and I just told her that this is my spirit soothing balm. Like, her songs are like healing medicine. She's
Yeah.
Journaling landed. Okay, awesome, Raquel. Lynn, providing guidance to those in path. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. So just look for the posts that we're going to share in a little bit. That will have it. And if you're not on the first to know list, get there, because that's where all the information will be about the discounts and everything else. And because it goes away on Tuesday, I don't want you to miss it. I'll still put all that information up there, but people miss what they miss, and I want you guys to get it. You guys stayed and talked through this. I'm expecting that it resonated in some way. So if it did, and you want to go deeper, of course, we can't really do all the things in 1 hour. So we thought we would do storytelling as our pedagogy and just talk about our journey and say like where our stuck places were, how were we sometimes navigating that, and really have a deep conversation about it. But, you know, if you want to move forward with your analysis and journaling, which really go hand in hand, then get on that list, because then we can help you. We can help you move through this. This is not going to be like, let's just think about things all the time. You're going to have hands-on application time and then support after that to have your questions answered. So ample opportunity to learn, breathe, be in community with people. I'm building a membership site, so I'm going to bring you into the membership site after that as well. So I'm trying to give people support the best way I know how, and you know, honor the fact that you might be in a place where you're not getting that support. I know I was. So I'm sort of, both Keondria and I are talking back to former versions of us, basically.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
I wish I had that version of us. Catherine says, I realize I can still contribute to research as a high school teacher, that I don't have to be employed with a university. I can be a research associate, find an alternate way to contribute. Yeah, like sometimes like higher ed feels like a cult to me. And then when people move or don't want to be in higher ed, there is so much shaming going on. I'm like, dude, no, there is a world outside of higher ed, and folks are doing lots of cool stuff outside of higher ed and being education adjacent or being education professionals. You know, like we don't always have to co-sign with the cult, you know.
Yeah.
Jackie, I have gained a lot of learning from these sessions. I'm not engaged in qualitative research, but this session has highlighted you don't need to be stuck in a traditional structure. You can create a pattern, and it's valuable in qualitative work. Awesome, awesome. Sharon said something that I missed. Tasha, so thank you both for sharing. It was great to just bring more knowledge about the wide range of experiences people have. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And Sharon said something that I missed, but we are at the top of the hour. So we thank you all for staying with us and for engaging. Oh, Tasha says, thank you both for sharing. I think this was great to just bring forward one knowledge, wide range of experiences people have. Yes, thank you, Tasha. And Flora,
Yes.
journaling and to move beyond your boundaries. I want to thank you, Andrea, for being brave and coming online with me. I want to thank me for figuring out how to bring somebody on Facebook.
I was just about to say that, and thank you for navigating and being our tech for this Facebook. We had a hard time the other day.
Tara, thank you. Sylvia, thank you. I know I didn't know how to do it, and then Keondria and I came online at least 10 times yesterday in the group, and people thought something was happening. Well, no, nothing was happening. You know,
we're just trying to figure it out.
yeah. Crystal said, I like the way you use it. Qualities is a black box. You know, my students have one a script. I direct them to the work of other scholars. I feel I'll freak out if I give them an unlimited freedom. Yeah, like unlimited freedom is kind of complicated, right? Because you give people unlimited freedom and folks don't know what to do with it, and they want to know like if they're on the right path. Like, why won't you just tell them the 5 steps? Just tell them the 5 steps, then you know it's the right path. But it's not. The path is what you're building as you're moving along. So yeah, so thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that. It's a hard thing. It's a really, really hard thing to navigate. So I will see you all next time. Thank you, Debbie. Thank you, Debbie. I will see you next time. Hi, Angus. I will see you all next time. And if you all are watching this on replay later on when it's not live, just hit replay and tell us what stood out to you, because then we know that this is reaching the community, and then we can do more programming like this and help you guys.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Love to all of you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye for now.
Take care.